Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual information session, Attending SAIS Europe, Understanding the Italian Student Visa Process. My name is Erin Skelly. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions in the Washington, D.C. office, and I'm joined by my colleague Daniel, who's going to be reading off your questions to me so that I can answer them at the end of the presentation. To let you know a little bit about myself, I've been with the SAIS Admissions Office for 11 years, and I have been advising and handling the visa application process for our students going to SAIS Europe for those entire 11 years. So I know the process inside and out. I've interacted with a number of different consulates around the United States, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have today. Doubleina, I see that you're having some problems hearing the session, and if I try to answer the question, you won't be able to hear me. Daniel, can you try to answer her in the chat box there? So I'm going to go over really quickly what we're going to be discussing in today's presentation. First, I'm going to talk about who needs a visa. There's a possibility that you're attending this session today, and you may not actually need a visa to attend SAIS Europe. I'm going to cover the various steps in the visa application process, where to apply for your visa, some best practices and tips when processing your visa, the required documents for the visa application, as well as supporting documents issued by the SAIS Admissions Office, financial documents, visas for partners and children. I'm going to answer some commonly asked questions, and then if you all have any questions, I will address those at the end of the session. Now, you may notice that there is a chat box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. If you have any questions during the presentation, I would encourage you to enter those in the chat box there. And I'll have Daniel read those questions to me at the end of the session so that I can answer them for you. You'll also see on the right-hand side of the screen there are a couple of links for you, and I will discuss those as we go through the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and one more thing. I know some people are wondering if this session is going to be recorded. The session is recorded. We will post it on the visa information page later, maybe not later today. It takes us a day or two to actually get the video formatted, but we will post that on the Italian visa information page later this week. So let's go ahead and get started. So who needs a visa to attend SAIS Europe? Anyone who is an American citizen or a non-European Union citizen needs a student visa. European Union citizens do not need a student visa. Anyone who is holding dual citizenship with an EU country does not need a visa as long as you have an EU-issued passport. So if any of you have dual U.S., European Union country citizenship, then you don't need to attend the session today. You just need to make sure that you have a passport for your European Union citizenship country. And I definitely recommend, if you have dual citizenship, to go with the European citizenship for this purpose. Additionally, for any students who have a spouse or fiance or children that will be joining them in SAIS Europe, those partners and or children also need to have a visa as well. Of course, if your spouse or child has European Union country citizenship, then they of course will not need a visa. So it's not quite as complicated as it looks like on the screen, but these are the steps that one needs to follow to secure a visa application. And I'm going to go through some of these things in a little bit more detail further along in the presentation. First, one needs to identify the consulate via which you will apply. Secondly, one needs to schedule an appointment. Third, you need to gather your supporting documents. That includes documents that are provided by the admissions office here, but it also includes other documents that you may need to secure yourself. You need to complete the visa application itself, which is a 3-page form. You need to attend your appointment and submit the application packet to the consulate in question. And then you need to wait. And then sometimes you may need to submit additional documentation depending on the consulate. And after a week or two, you'll be able to pick up your completed visa. And then step number 8 really isn't actually part of the visa application process, but the 8th step is go to SAIS Europe, have an amazing educational experience, and enjoy the fruits of your labor in the visa application process. So I'm going to go through these, each of these steps a little bit more in depth in the following slides. First, where to apply and identifying the consulate where you will apply. There are a great number of consulates representing the Italian government here in the United States. You can't just apply to any consulate. You actually need to find which consulate is right for you. Each consulate has a specific jurisdiction and will only process applications from residents who live within those jurisdictions. The closest consulate to you is not always your consulate. So for example, there is a consulate here in Washington, D.C. The consulate in Washington, D.C. services residents of the District of Columbia, Montgomery County in Maryland, and Prince George's County in Maryland. They also provide services to Arlington County residents in Virginia, as well as residents of the city of Alexandria in Virginia. Now, if you live in Baltimore, you can't go to the consulate here in Washington, D.C., even though it's only an hour away. If you live in Baltimore, your consulate is in Philadelphia. So you need to find the appropriate consulate. There is a link on the right-hand side which says List of Local Consulates in the United States. You can click on that link and you can see all of the consulates and where they're located. They also list what states are covered by which consulate. So if you just do a search on the page for your state, you will be able to find your consulate. Now, when I'm talking about your state, it has to be where you have established residency. So if you have a Maryland driver's license, then you're going to have to go to the Philadelphia consulate. You're going to have to prove either that you have a driver's license or a utility bill or a signed lease that proves that you are a resident of that particular area. Additionally, if you are currently an undergrad student and you are a student in a different area, you can go to a consulate if your university is within their jurisdiction. I would recommend going with your permanent address, though, if you're currently a student, because you're going to be graduating in the next couple of weeks, and because you're graduating, they may not consider you a student anymore. So it's better to stick with your permanent residential address. Now, depending on where you live, your consulate might be really, really, really far away. Like, for example, if you live in Denver, your consulate is in Chicago. Denver and Chicago are really far away, and you don't necessarily want to travel from Denver all the way to Chicago just to submit a visa application. And you can't mail in a visa application. You actually have to go there in person. So one of the alternates for that is most states, either in the state capital or in another major city within that state, have honorary consulates who can accept visa applications, and they will send them on to the main consulate on your behalf. So those honorary consulates are also listed on the website of local consulates in the United States. Definitely check those out in advance to see where your closest honorary consulate is. Now, a word to the wise: if you are in a rush, if you are going to be traveling internationally very soon, you are going to be better served, and it will be faster if you go to the main Italian consulate. If you submit a visa application through an honorary consulate, it may take a week or two longer than if you just go directly to the main consulate. And if you get in touch with the honorary consulate, they can advise you about how much time it will take to process your visa application. Now, here are some of our best practices about submitting your application, which apply to the deadlines and things like that. I mentioned step number 2 is scheduling an appointment. All of the consulates allow you to schedule an appointment online. They require appointments. You can't just walk in with an application and expect them to process it. They will require you to make an appointment. These appointments fill up fast, sometimes 6 weeks in advance. So you should schedule your appointment as soon as possible. Don't wait. I've had a number of students in past years that they waited way too long, and some of them were late for preterm because they couldn't get an appointment early enough. So schedule an appointment now. Schedule it as soon as you can. However, when you are scheduling your appointment, you can schedule an appointment now, but the appointment cannot be any earlier than May 18th. Consulates will not accept visa applications more than 90 days prior to the visa start date. And the visa start date is August 17th, which is the first day of preterm. So they will not process it more than 90 days in advance. So don't schedule an appointment for May 16th or May 17th. Schedule the earliest appointment that you can get after May 18th. The next point, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Make sure that you schedule your appointment at the correct consulate. The one that is closest to you may not necessarily be your consulate. When you're submitting your application with your documents, make sure that your documents are in the same order as listed on the consulate website, and make sure that you read the consulate website instructions thoroughly to make sure that you are submitting a complete application. Every consulate tends to be just a little bit different. The instructions that I'm going to go over are specific to the DC consulate because this is where most of our students submit their visa applications, because most of our students going to SACE Europe are within the DC metro area. Other consulates' instructions will be very similar, but they won't necessarily be exactly the same. If you have to travel a long distance to get to your consulate, check with them in advance to make sure that they can ship the passport and visa back to you so that you don't have to make the same trip twice. Most consulates will do this. However, be aware that you have to use a U.S. Postal Service express envelope. The consulates will not accept FedEx or UPS envelopes. So if you come in with a FedEx prepaid envelope, they will not take it, and you will have to come back in person to get your visa. So, but most consulates are willing to do that. And usually that information is available on their website as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the documents that you have to submit for your visa application. Now, as I mentioned, the instructions that I'm using, that I'm demonstrating here, are specifically for the Washington, D.C. consulate. If you go onto the Washington, D.C. consulate, you'll find all this information on their website. Similarly, if you go to the Chicago consulate's website or the Los Angeles consulate's website, you can find the same instructions, only specific to that consulate. But every consulate tends to be just a little bit different. For example, the New York consulate last year, they required that every applicant submit, in addition to their application, a complete photocopy of everything in the application, as well as travel insurance, which is not on this list. So always, always, always check the specific consulate's website to confirm the necessary documents. And when you are submitting those documents, make sure that they are in the order as they're listed on the website. So let's go through these really quickly. So first, we have the completed visa application. Now, it's important to note, make sure that you download the correct visa application form from the consulate's website. There are 2 types of visa application forms. The first is a Schengen visa application, and the second is a national visa application. You do not want the Schengen visa application, because this is not a Schengen visa. You want the form that is titled National Visa Application. That's the one that you want. Now, we do have on our website a sample Italian visa application, which is filled in with all the information that you need for your visa application, sans your personal identifying information. And this is a notated PDF form that has actual notes and instructions on it that I put in to the sample form so that you can see exactly what you need to fill out. I've identified fields that you should not fill out, and I've also identified what dates and things like that you should enter in the different fields. So there is a link for that in the box on the right-hand side titled Italian Visa Application Sample. There also is a link for this sample form on the Italian visa information page as well. Okay, the second is that you need one passport photo. Now I put in parentheses here ICAO standard. This was listed on the consulate's website. The ICAO standard is actually a European style passport photo. It's about the same height as a US passport photo, but it's a little bit narrower. It's supposed to be 45 millimeters high by 35 millimeters wide. So what you want to do is you could just go get a regular passport photo and you can, snip it down on the sides. If you get a regular US passport photo, which is typically about 2 by 2, they'll accept it. They won't reject your application if you use a US passport photo. And I'm also going to mention this. This is just a little fun tip for all of you going to SICE Europe. When you buy your passport photos, buy a whole bunch. Buy like 6 or 7 of them. Because you will find that you'll need additional photos when you go to SICE Europe, and it's not easy to find places where you can get passport photos in Italy. So buy some extras, take them with you. You'll thank me for it later. Okay, the next item is number 3, your original passport valid through September 2018. I've noted September 2018 because the passport needs to be valid for at least 3 months past the end date of the visa. You also need to make sure that you have at least 2 blank pages in your passport. I would recommend having more, but that is the bare minimum of blank pages that you need in your passport for the visa. Number 4 only applies to individuals who are not U.S. citizens. You need proof of legal residence in the country of application, or this applies to U.S. citizens if you are getting your visa somewhere outside of the United States. Basically, consulates will process applications for anyone who is in the country on a visa for that country. So if you're someone, say you're a Colombian citizen and you are living in the United States and you're here on a work visa, you don't have to go back to Colombia to get your visa. All you have to do is you can apply through the consulate in the U.S. and you have to show them a copy of your green card or your work visa, whatever it is that proves that you are currently a legal resident in that country. Similarly, if you are a U.S. citizen and say you've been living and working in Myanmar, and so you want to go to the consulate in Myanmar, you just have to prove to them, show them that you are in the country legally. So you have to show them your Myanmar visa for that country. So this only applies if you're applying in a country that is something other than your country of citizenship. Number 5, excuse me, you have to show proof of residency in the jurisdiction that you're applying. So as I mentioned, you need to show either a driver's license, a lease, or a utility bill to show that you're actually a resident of that jurisdiction. Number 6, I put this in quotation marks because this was actually the wording that they used on the Italian consulate website. It says documentation on the course. And if you could see me, I'm using little air quotes right now. These are the SICE supporting documents that we will be sending out to all of you. You may recall you got an email from us last week. We wanted you to confirm your mailing address. The documentation of the course are just those documents that we're sending out to you. Number 7, we need financial documentation demonstrating approximately $50,000. I'll go into this in a little bit more detail. I have another slide a couple pages down. Number 8, you need proof of health insurance. Now, the letters that we provide that we're going to be sending to you do indicate, and they should suffice as proof of health insurance. We say that all students are required to have health insurance, that you're automatically enrolled in the Johns Hopkins Health Insurance Plan unless you can prove that you have other health insurance. Most consulates will accept this. Some of them will not. If they will not accept it, then you'll have to fill out what's called an affidavit of health insurance, which basically it's a legal document. It's a form, but you fill it out in front of the consulate, or you fill it out and have it in front of a notary. And it basically says, I guarantee that I will have health insurance when I go to Italy. Number 9, flight itinerary showing arrival date in Italy. Now, the DC Consulate's website says that they need to see a round trip ticket. You may find that you can't book a return flight that far in advance. So typically they will accept an open-ended return ticket as long as the flight itinerary shows when you will be arriving in Italy. And then number 10, proof of available lodging. Now this one's a little bit goofy because everybody interprets this a little bit differently. With proof of available lodging, the letters that we give you, that we will send to you, say that we will assist you in finding lodging and there is housing available to you as a student when you arrive in SAIS Europe. However, for some consulates, that isn't quite enough. Sometimes they want to see hotel lodgings where you have a hotel booked prior to your appointment with Salvatore. He's the housing manager at SAIS Europe. So I would recommend that you bring with you a copy of your hotel reservation. Basically, make your appointment with Salvatore after you book your flight, and then book a hotel to cover those days until you're going to move into your apartment. And then finally, we have number 11. We have the visa fee. Last year, for the first time, the Italian consulates began charging a fee of 50 euro for student visas. Now, the complicated thing about this 50 euro fee is that it's not exactly 50 euros. Basically, just check on the consulate's website for exactly how much you're supposed to pay, because it's made payable in US dollars, so it depends on the exchange rate. It changes quarterly, and some consulates request the fee be an exact amount, an exact conversion. Some of the consulates round it up to the nearest dollar. So it really varies from consulate to consulate. So just check the website for your consulate to find out how much your fee is going to be. Sorry, that was a long slide. Okay. As I mentioned, the letters of support that we provide cover or fulfill a number of visa requirements. The letters of support serve as a proof of enrollment or admission. They serve as proof of health insurance. They serve as proof of housing. They serve as proof of tuition cost. And they serve as proof of academic year dates. We also have another letter that is also a declaration of value. That's really only necessary for our students who are applying for visas outside of the United States. We are currently working on issuing the letters of support, and we will be sending those out beginning this Friday, as we hope to get the first batch out. The rest, hopefully we'll get them all out by Friday, but some of them may go out early next week. Okay, so let's talk about financial documentation. If you remember, my earlier slide said the financial documentation should be approximately $50,000. That estimate is on the high end, but to really be safe, that's how much money you want to show. Depending on each consulate, I've had some consulates say that you need to show the equivalent of 800 euro per month. The DC consulate currently says that you have to show the equivalent of 435 euro per month in US dollars, which I don't see how anyone could possibly live for a month on only 435 euro, but it might be possible. However, with each consulate being a little bit different, sometimes it even depends on who is processing your visa. They want to see that you have enough money to cover your living expenses while you live in CICE Europe. They also want to see that you have enough money to cover your tuition. So when you take into consideration the cost of tuition, which is approximately 36,000 euro, maybe a little bit more, and then cost of living expenses, you're looking at approximately $50,000. So just to be safe, you want to show that you have $50,000 somewhere. Now, there are a lot of different things that you can use as financial documentation. The first is you can use a financial aid award letter. If you want to use a financial aid award letter, that will include your fellowships, but you can also ask that the financial aid office add Grad Plus loans to the financial aid award letter. In order to do that, you need to fill out basically the Grad Plus application form and send it in to them, and they'll add it to your letter. Now, the financial aid award letter is not something that you already have. You have to request it from the financial aid office. If you have, you can use a checking account statement. You can use a savings account statement. You can use a statement from your retirement account or an investment account, or any combination of these 5 items. Or if you have an external scholarship, I see someone has typed a question about this, so I'm just going to answer this question now. If you have an external scholarship, it should be some official documentation from the external scholarship, a letter saying that you are awarded this amount of money for graduate study for 2017-2018. But all of those documents together should total approximately $50,000. Also, any bank statements that that you use should be notarized. Usually the bank can notarize them for you. You can also request that your bank official issue a letter on bank letterhead saying that John Doe has accounts with us totaling $100,000, something along those lines. A letter confirming how much money you have in your accounts. Basically, you just have to show you have the money somewhere. Even if it's not liquid, like if it's an investment account or it's in a retirement account, that's not necessarily readily available funds, but they know that you have the money somewhere. Okay, so this is a common question. Students want to know, what if I can't provide the financial documentation? What if I don't have the money myself? Well, the first thing that I would mention is that any student can borrow up to the full cost of attendance via Grad Plus loan. So that's kind of the easiest way to get documentation. But you can also find someone else, like a parent, a spouse, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, who would be willing to provide documentation on your behalf. Basically, someone who does have enough money in an account somewhere and is willing to fill out an affidavit of support. What is an affidavit of support? An affidavit of support is a form that says, I, Jane Doe, mother of John Doe, have this much money, and I will be financially responsible for my son while he is in studying in Italy. So that's kind of what an affidavit of support is. I believe we have a blank affidavit of support on our visa information page. If you can't find it, you can let me know. I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Again, as with the regular financial documentation, the affidavit of support has to be notarized, as do the bank documents and the financial documents. Someone wanted to know about post 9/11 and Yellow Ribbon as financial support. We have had students use that in the past. If you need to get documentation for that kind of stuff, just follow up with me individually, and we can get you the right documentation for that to help you put everything together. Okay, I'm going to pause for a water break. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about visas for partners and children. Currently, it's very difficult to get a family or a spouse visa for students because a student has no clear source of income. So if you try to file a family or spouse visa for your partner and or for your children, it most likely won't be approved. So we've come up with kind of an alternate solution for this. Spouses or fiancés have the option to enroll in language study part-time at the SAIS Europe Bologna Center, and therefore they can apply for a student visa. Now, it's important to note that in order to take advantage of this opportunity, the spouse or visa must already hold a bachelor's degree. If your spouse or fiancé does not hold a bachelor's degree, the SAIS Europe admissions office has found other language schools within Bologna who are willing to work with our students' partners in order to get them enrolled in a language course so that they can apply for a student visa. When enrolling in the language study part-time at SAIS Europe, the partner's tuition for the full year must be paid up front. It is a reduced tuition cost, so it's something like 1,200 euro for the full year. And then for the visa application process, spouses or fiancés follow the exact same steps as I've outlined for full-time students, and all the required materials are the same. There is one small difference though. All paperwork, all letters of support will be issued by the SAIS Europe admissions office. They will handle all the paperwork. We do not issue any documents supporting spouse or fiancé student visas. So if you have questions about that process and you want to get your spouse or fiancé enrolled in a language course, you'll have to follow up with the SAIS Europe admissions office. If you don't know how to get in touch with them, just email us. We'll put you in touch with them. And additionally, because tuition is paid up front, spouses or fiancés only need to show approximately $10,000 or $11,000 to cover living expenses for the time of the academic year. Children's visas are handled on a case-by-case basis. We don't get that many students bringing children with them to Italy, but if anyone has any questions about bringing a child with them, I would recommend that you just email me individually and we can talk about it one-on-one. Okay. So a couple of frequently asked questions. I'm just going to go over these really quick because they may be questions that you're already thinking or you want to know. First, Daniel, do you want to read the questions off the slide?
Yes.
No, those questions.
Oh, those questions. Okay, so first off we have, does a student have to appear in person at the consulate to obtain a student visa?
And the answer to that question is yes. You do need to appear in person at the consulate to apply for your student visa. Whether you're going to the regular consulate or whether you are going to an honorary consulate, you do have to be there in person because they do want to look at the passport photo and they want to look at your face. They want to make sure you're the same person.
Can a non-U.S. citizen apply for a student visa through a consulate in the U.S.?
Potentially, yes. If a non-U.S. citizen is here in the United States, either on a green card or on a visa, that non-U.S. citizen can apply for a student visa through an Italian consulate in the United States.
Does the student have to complete any additional procedures once in Italy?
There's nothing having to do with the actual visa that needs to be done once you arrive in Italy. However, you do need to secure something called a permesso di soggiorno, which is a residency permit. It's something that you acquire through the Questura, which is the police department in Bologna. They only speak Italian. They don't speak English. So basically, when you arrive in Italy, report to the registrar's office. at SICE Europe. Let them know that you're here. The registrar's office arranges a big group trip for all the new students to take them to the Questora to help them apply for their permesso, and then they translate on the student's behalf with the Questora. But that's the permesso. That doesn't actually have anything to do with the visa.
Can a student obtain a study visa from another country?
You can, as long as you are in that other country legally, either on a residency permit or on a visa.
Can a student travel before or after the program?
That's a very good question. Currently, U.S. citizens are allowed to travel for up to 90 days in the Schengen region without a visa, which means that your passport actually acts as a visa. So the visa will begin on the very first day of preterm. However, you can enter the country up to 90 days before that. So you will have plenty of time to travel in and around Italy and or Europe before this visa starts.
So if I'm having a problem obtaining my visa, what should I do?
The first thing that you should do is that you should contact our office here in DC. Sometimes it's something that's easily solved, and we can provide you with additional documentation and help you resolve whatever problems you're having. However, sometimes we refer problems to our colleagues at the SICE Europe campus. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to resolve issues if we have someone who is Italian speaking with the consulate on your behalf. So those issues are handled on a case-by-case basis, but your first step is to contact the SICE DC admissions office so that we can advise you from there.
Can I just go to Italy early and get my visa there?
No, you cannot. You need to get your visa in your country of residency. I've had some students try this, and it created a lot of problems because you cannot get a student visa once you're in Italy. You have to get it in the country where you're a citizen.
Wouldn't it just be easier to just use a visa service instead?
Some people ask that, and if you want to use a visa service, that is up to you. I'm not going to tell you not to. However, a visa service costs a lot of money. You're probably going to pay about $300 to use a visa service. They do take care of all the legwork for you, but it's not necessarily the most fiscally responsible choice. So I'll leave that up to you, but it's just as easy to go on your own and do it on your own. There are a few exceptions, like for example, if you live in China, the consulate in China actually requires the Chinese applicants use a visa service, and that's a requirement of the consulate in China, but that's the only place I've ever heard of that happening. Okay, so now we're going to open up, and I'm going to answer some of your questions. Daniel's been writing them down diligently as I've been talking, so he's going to read them to me, and I'm going to answer them.
Okay, so Will Davis asked, if I'm not attending preterm, can we apply for the visa later than the May 18th deadline?
Well, actually, you have to apply after the May 18th deadline. The May 18th is not a deadline. You cannot apply before May 18th. Now, I would say that you have to apply before August 17th if you're going to be going to preterm. However, if you're not going to preterm, you can wait after that date. But I would strongly encourage you to do it as soon as possible so that it's done. If you wait until the last minute, problems always crop up.
So Valerie asked, can consular correspondents process visas?
That is a good question, and it's a question that I don't know the answer to. I did notice on the list of local consulates in the United States that they are now listing correspondent consulates. They haven't done that in the past, so I'm not sure. I would encourage you to go ahead and contact the correspondent consulate and ask them directly, and you can feel free to let me know what you find out. I do know, however, that honorary consulates can accept visa applications.
Terrell asked, will they be okay with the one-way ticket for demonstrating arrival?
I've never seen anybody be declined for a visa with only a one-way ticket. The consulates seem to understand that it's too far in advance to get a round trip ticket. So typically they will be okay with a one-way ticket.
Okay, Julie asks, do the consular offices accept credit card payments for the authorization fee?
They do not. It must be a cashier's check or a money order. They will not accept personal checks. They will not accept credit cards. They will not accept cash. It has to be a cashier's check or a money order. Sometimes they'll accept cash if they have an ATM in the consular section where they accept applications, but they don't always have an ATM. You can't rely on that, so you'll have to get a cashier's check. Oh, and okay, I will explain this because I realize that there are a lot of younger people that are just used to using ATMs for everything, and they don't know what a cashier's check is. A cashier's check is when you go to the bank and you tell them, I need a cashier's check. The check is drawn on the bank. It's not drawn on your personal account. So it's a way for the recipient of the cashier's check to know that the funds are guaranteed. So that's what a cashier's check is.
Okay. Catherine Tyson asked, what is the current fee for the DC consulate?
That I don't know off the top of my head because I didn't look it up. It's 50 euro, and it's whatever the exchange rate was on April 1.
Okay. So do SICE fellowships contribute to the 50K financial demonstration?
Yes, they do. However, you do need to get a financial award letter from the financial aid office in order to show that. You cannot use the printout from the email that they sent you or from CIS self-service. You have to actually contact them and get them to issue you a letter on letterhead. They do it all the time. They know what we're looking for with that.
Okay. Can I use a Virginia utility bill to prove residence in Alexandria, even though I have my driver's license is from Maryland?
You should be able to do that as long as you have a lease or a utility bill. They should be okay with that.
Okay. Are there any extra visa steps for bringing a pet?
I would not recommend bringing a pet. I don't know anything about bringing animals along. Probably not a good idea. I do know that they end up being in quarantine for a while. Regarding the pet, if you want to email me, I can pass that question on to my colleagues in SICE Europe and see what they have to say about it. But that is something that I don't know about. They're not people, so I don't think they need visas. So it's not really my area of expertise, but we can try to find out.
Okay. As a non-U.S. student from a country that requires a visa to enter the EU, when is the earliest time I can enter Italy with my Italian study visa, and do I have to enter through another European Union country prior?
That is a really good question. The first thing is that I would get in touch with the consulate and ask if they can start the visa a few days earlier to give you travel time. Otherwise, what you can do is you can simultaneously apply for a study visa and also apply for a tourist visa, submit 2 applications, and try to get a tourist visa for like a week or 2 before preterm starts, and then basically your travel visa will just roll into your student visa. I don't know if you would have to enter through another EU country or if you could enter through another EU country. Typically, Schengen visas, which is the travel visas, are valid for the entire Schengen region. So you should be okay to travel in other areas or enter through another EU country as long as it's in the Schengen region. And then from there, travel to Italy. That should be fine. But I would speak with the consulate about that to see if they can just start your visa early, maybe a week early, so that you have travel time.
If a spouse wants to work, any suggestions for getting a work visa sponsored?
Unfortunately, that is not something that I am an expert on. I do know that getting work visas are very difficult, and
not readily available. Italy, I know that their unemployment rate is much higher than ours. So that would be a question probably more suited for the SICE Europe office. They may know a little bit more about that than I do.
So if I'm going to Korea and I'll be there in August, would I be able to use their consulate?
Don, if you are going to be in Korea on a Korean visa, then you should be able to apply via the consulate there in Korea. Otherwise, you may have problems. You may have to, I would recommend trying to apply through the Korean consulate if you're going to be there on a visa. If you will not be on a visa in Korea, you may have to make plans to return to the United States to apply for your visa before going to SICE Europe. However, you can always contact the consulate in Korea now and see if they would be able to process your visa while you're there, even if you're not on a visa.
For those coming early, do I need to provide my itinerary for entering Europe or directly for when I'm starting my study in Italy?
I'm sorry, I need to look at this question again. Well, I will be.
Dylan Parks.
Can you read it exactly as it's
Yes.
written?
I will be traveling to Europe prior to arrival, so I will be arriving in Italy from within Europe via plane or train. Will I need to provide my full itinerary from the US to Italy or simply from Europe to Italy?
If you can, show your full itinerary from the US to Italy, but at the very least, they will want to see when you are entering the Schengen region, when you're entering the European Union. They will want to see that. So if you have a train itinerary or something along those lines, that would be good to include.
Okay. Does the Miami consulate have any quirks?
I haven't had any issues with the Miami consulate in the time that I've been working with them. So as long as you have all of your documents in order, I think you'll be fine.
Who should the cashier's check be made out to?
It should be made out to, I believe, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or it may be, no, excuse me, I apologize, I misspoke. It's not made out to the ministry, it should be made out directly to the consulate that you're applying. So it needs to be made out to the Italian consulate in Chicago or the Italian consulate in San Francisco. It needs to be made out to that specific consulate. They are very particular about how the check is made out. So check the website and see exactly what they list as who is the payee on the check. Don't guess. Look it up on the website. For each one, it may be a little bit different. I know I've had some students have checks returned and refused because the payee was just slightly wrong. So check the website.
Getting a visa for a fiance, can I use my own financial resources? Or if she's arriving later than I am, should we still apply for our visas together? Or do we apply separately?
You can apply together. It makes sense for you to go in on the same appointment. You can use your personal resources as long as you have enough to cover you and her. I would recommend using different accounts if possible. Like say if you have some money in account A and some money in account B, use account A for your stuff and account B for your fiance's stuff so that the consulate is aware that it's actually two separate accounts, two separate amounts of money. But you can't use your paperwork. Say you have exactly $50K. You can't use your paperwork for you and then use the exact same paperwork for her. It should be different accounts, different paperwork, even if it's both in your name.
Does my flight have to land in Italy or could I fly into another Schengen country?
You're perfectly welcome to fly into another Schengen country. That's not a problem. A lot of students will do that. They'll fly into somewhere in France, they'll fly into somewhere in Germany, and then travel for a week or two and then travel from there into Italy. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. To confirm, do we need to apply for a Schengen visa or a long-term visa?
You need to apply for a national visa. National. Look for national on the form. There's only two forms. There's a Schengen form and there's a national form.
Okay. Does the consulate hold on to your passport while they process your application?
Yes, they do. So you do need to have the time span in which you can hand over your passport and be without it for 2 or 3 weeks and then collect it again. They need to have the passport. They run background checks. They affix the visa to the passport. So you will have to hand that over for that time period.
Okay. On the form, if I have a layover in Reykjavik prior to landing in Milan, is my Schengen point of entry Reykjavik or Milan?
List Milan.
Will a non-US, non-EU citizen be able to travel within Europe on the D-type multiple entry visa during a year at Bologna?
If you have a student visa, you will be able to travel within Europe regardless of your citizenship, because the agreement within the European Union allows anyone with an Italian visa to travel anywhere within the European Union because Italy is a member of the European Union.
Can I provide a round-trip ticket that returns in DC, or does the itinerary have to show a return flight at the end of the program?
You could. I have seen some students that they're planning on coming home for, say, Thanksgiving, or they're planning on coming home for Christmas, that the round-trip ticket that they purchased gets them there in August and comes back in December. I think that will be okay. I don't think that will be a problem for you. Or you can just have an open-ended return flight.
Is there a difference between the long-term visa and national visa? The consulate in New York website only lists Schengen visa or long-term visa, no national visa.
Then select the long-term visa.
If a spouse has applied for the SICE language course but has not been notified of admission, should they go ahead and apply for the visa or wait until official notification?
You have to wait until the SICE Europe office approves your registration, and then they have to send you documentation. They're sending you supporting documents. You can't apply for a visa without having the supporting documents. So you need to wait until you've completed the process with SICE Europe in terms of being admitted to the language program before you can apply for anything. However, you can go ahead and set up your appointment. Let the SICE Europe admissions office know that you have an appointment for this day and that you need your documentation by that point.
So if I'm only attending preterm and fall semester, does that complicate my visa application?
No, but if you're only attending preterm and fall, let us know, because we need to change your letters. So whoever asked that question, email us as soon as this is over. Email us and tell us that you're the person that is only going to be there for preterm and the fall semester. And if there's anyone else that's just planning on being there for the fall semester, email us and let us know that.
Okay. If I have dual citizenship, must I get the visa affixed to the passport of the country where I reside?
You can get the visa affixed to whichever passport you want. It needs to be the country in which you're applying. So if you live in the United States, you really should apply with a U.S. passport. If you live in Colombia and you have a Colombian passport, you should use the Colombian passport. So whichever country you're living in, that's the passport that you should use, probably. Some consulates are easier to work with than others. The consulates in the United States and the process for U.S. citizens is generally a little more flexible than it is for some other countries. So, but if you can't get to the other country with your other passport, then you should do it with the U.S. passport. And is that the last question?
That's the last one we have so far.
Okay. Well, then I think we're going to wrap up because we don't have any more questions. Oh, we have a couple more people typing, so maybe we have. Okay, Will, I will wait. Will, I will wait for you. What are the email addresses for follow-up? That's a good question. I have that on the next slide. Here you go.
If you have additional questions, you can email us at sice.dc.admissions@jhu.edu. You can also call us at 202-663-5700. I would recommend, if you haven't read it already, read the visa information page. I put that together especially for you guys. So read that page if you haven't already. It covers a lot of the stuff that we talked about today. And it's pretty detailed, and it has links for a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today. So, Will, hurry up. I'm waiting for you. I'm just kidding. Take your time. No pressure. But yeah, definitely check out the website with the visa information. I know that we covered a lot today. As I said, we will be posting this video online, so if you want to watch it again, because you enjoyed it so much the first time. Okay, so Will actually doesn't have a question. He found it online, apparently. So with that, we're going to wrap up. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. You had some great questions. And if you think of anything else, or if we couldn't answer your question today, just go ahead, shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to help you out.